Imagine the face of an entire league, the person everyone is talking about, suddenly sidelined. It's the kind of news that just hits different, and honestly, for many, it really felt like it was coming. If you're as fascinated by these stories as we are, and you love getting the full picture, definitely hit that like button, subscribe, and share this deep dive with someone who needs to hear it. Okay, so let's unpack this. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something that's been buzzing across the sports world, the recent injury to Caitlin Clark, and importantly, what it might reveal about how player health, team communication, and maybe the future of a league all intersect. We've gone through a lot of insights and observations to bring you what we think is really key here.
Yeah, what's truly illuminating, I think, is how one athlete's situation, their immediate circumstances, can cast this huge spotlight on much larger systemic questions within pro sports.
Yeah.
And especially for a league like the WNBA, which is right in the middle of this critical growth phase. It's not simply about one injury, is it? It's really a conversation about trust, strategic planning, and, well, the long-term vision needed for sustained success.
Absolutely. And when you look at the immediate concern, around Caitlin Clark's injury itself, it's fair to say it wasn't exactly a bolt from the blue for anyone who's been following the Indiana Fever closely. If you've watched their recent games, you probably noticed Caitlin she wasn't quite herself.
The eye test.
Yeah, the eye test frankly showed it. Her energy seemed off, that signature fire wasn't quite there on the court. And even her pregame routine looked visibly different. You could sort of see it in her body language.
Right.
And the numbers definitely backed up those observations. Just 1 3-pointer in her last 3 games, only 6 points in her most recent outing. That's not Caitlin Clark.
No, not at all.
And it wasn't just us noticing, right? Fans across social media were incredibly dialed in. People were buzzing about it. They were pointing out specific signs, like the tape on her upper left leg in multiple games.
That was pretty visible.
Yeah. And when an athlete is consistently playing taped up in a high-impact sport like basketball, that's usually a pretty clear signal something significant is going on, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It's rarely just for show.
I mean, we saw comments everywhere saying things like, wouldn't be shocked if Caitlin sits out a couple games soon. And then, boom, less than 12 hours later, the news drops. It really makes you feel like the collective intuition of the fan base was basically proven right.
And what's striking there is how all those things, the observable physical signs, the performance dips, the fan community's astute observations, they really did paint a very clear picture for anyone paying attention. It underscores that this wasn't some sudden out-of-nowhere event, and it reinforces how closely fans do follow their athletes and how often their gut feelings about player well-being turn out to be right, sometimes long before any official announcements.
That's such a crucial point, and it directly ties into why this situation goes way beyond just Caitlin or the Fever team. Obviously, it's a massive deal for Indiana. I mean, that team currently revolves almost entirely around her presence.
Oh, sure.
But here's where it gets really interesting. It's arguably an even bigger deal for the WNBA as a whole. Love the hype or hate it, Caitlin Clark is currently driving, unprecedented ratings, merchandise sales, eyeballs to the league. She is, quite simply, a phenomenon right now.
Undeniably.
And we actually have the hard data to back that up.
Yeah.
When she missed time earlier this season, league-wide TV ratings plummeted by over 50%.
Wow. Over 50%.
Oh, yeah, that statistic is just wild, isn't it? And it really underscores the immense commercial gravity she carries. You can debate how healthy it is for the league's long-term health to be so dependent on one player, but you just can't argue with those numbers.
No, you can't.
And with crucial collective bargaining agreement negotiations, the CBA looming on the horizon, the WNBA critically needs her on the court. Her presence directly impacts the league's leverage in those talks.
It's a really challenging dynamic, isn't it? Her unparalleled viewership numbers, the merchandise sales, that all directly translates into media rights value. And that value is arguably the primary bargaining chip in any CBA negotiation.
Right.
So when you think about future player salaries, benefits, the league's overall financial health, losing a player who drives that much commercial interest, even for a little while, it means the league's negotiating position could be substantially weaker. This isn't just about, immediate fan engagement. It's really about the financial backbone of the league's future and how much players can collectively earn and invest back into their game. It's a very delicate tightrope walk between those immediate commercial interests and the long-term imperative of athlete welfare.
It truly is. And this brings us right to what many people are calling the trust issues surrounding this whole situation. Because it feels like something that's maybe been brewing for a while, leading to questions about how the team has been handling her, maybe her health overall. Like, think back to the preseason. There were already whispers then about Caitlin nursing a quad injury. Then she comes into the season having put on a significant amount of muscle in the offseason, which, okay, let's be clear, that's generally a positive thing for her long-term game, right? More strength, durability.
Definitely a positive goal, yeah.
But here's something maybe many don't realize. When you bulk up like that, it changes your biomechanics. Your shot mechanics can subtly shift, your movement patterns evolve, and sometimes your body just needs this period of careful adaptation. It's not just about adding strength, it's about, like, retraining your entire system to work with that new physique.
Exactly. The body's kinetic chain is fascinating.
Yeah. And if an athlete pushes through discomfort or tries to compensate for one existing weakness, maybe that quad issue, suddenly another area picks up the slack.
Right.
And that's why we're seeing these concerns now that one injury could lead to another, a quad issue potentially leading to this groin strain. It feels like we could be seeing a classic domino effect here.
That's a great way to put it. Think of it like a series of interconnected gears, right? If one gear, maybe your quad, is stiff or out of alignment because you've suddenly made it much stronger, or maybe it wasn't fully healed, well, it puts undue strain on the next gear down the line. That subtle alteration in how you move could shift pressure to your groin or maybe your knee, causing those areas to become susceptible to injury, to wear out faster. It's a very interconnected system. Pushing through discomfort or compensating for one weakness absolutely can create new vulnerabilities elsewhere, leading to this cascade of related issues.
Exactly. And that interconnectedness, that's precisely why a seemingly minor issue can snowball into something much more serious. And that's what worries me most here, honestly. It starts with the quad, now it's the groin. And if she's not careful or if the team, rushes her back, the next domino could be something far more severe. And let's not forget, women basketball players are statistically more prone to knee injuries than men. Differences in anatomy, biomechanics.
That's a well-documented risk factor, yeah.
So the last thing anyone wants is for this to turn into a significant knee, hip, or ankle injury that could sideline her for a whole season, or, God forbid, even longer. So when the Fever released their statement saying Caitlin had an MRI and she's just day by day, I think a lot of us maybe collectively just rolled our eyes so hard we almost strained something ourselves.
Laugh slightly. I understand that reaction.
I get the desire to protect your player, control the narrative, keep opponents guessing. I get all that. But honestly, it just felt dismissive. When fans see the tape on the leg, see the limping, see the grimacing, don't insult our intelligence by acting like this just popped up out of nowhere or that it's some minor thing that'll clear up overnight.
It's definitely a persistent challenge for teams, isn't it? Balancing that strategic communication with the expectations of an incredibly engaged fan base. Teams often prioritize controlling information, for privacy, for competitive advantage. But when fans are this observant and this invested, a lack of perceived transparency can easily erode trust. That line between protecting player privacy and maybe alienating a passionate community is really fine, and it requires careful navigation. It feels like maybe they misstepped here.
And I think there's historical precedent, too, right, with the Fever specifically. People remember the Dana Bonner situation where it was vague personal reasons for weeks before a totally different story emerged. That kind of thing creates lingering fan distrust.
That context certainly doesn't help build confidence in vague statements now, no.
Exactly. And that perceived lack of, care. Or maybe transparency. It seems like it's played out in some baffling in-game decisions, too. Let's talk about that Seattle game again, for example. Caitlin was clearly on the bench, looking completely done for the night. The Fevers were up by 8 points with just 16 seconds left. The game was, for all intents and purposes, over. And then Coach Stephanie White puts her back in. What was the actual point?
It did seem questionable at the time.
It felt completely unnecessary, risking her health for absolutely nothing. And wouldn't you know it, she takes a handoff, fumbles the ball, falls awkwardly, and you can clearly see she's in pain, limping, grimacing, grabbing her leg. Was that genuinely worth it for a game you've already locked up? That's the kind of decision-making that makes you truly question the priorities. Are they thinking long-term here?
And that really highlights this inherent tension, doesn't it? Between the competitive drives, maybe the coaches, maybe the players, and the necessity of long-term player protection. Sometimes a team or a coach has to proactively shield a player from their own desire to be on the court. especially when the game outcome is already decided, or the risk of re-injury significantly outweighs any potential reward. Sacrificing a few seconds of playing time or maybe even resting for a whole game when it feels borderline can be a critical investment in an athlete's sustained health and future performance. It really is about taking that longer view, even when the immediate competitive urge is really intense.
Taking that longer view is exactly what everyone sensible is hoping for now as we look ahead to her recovery. Honestly, it feels like sometimes teams forget these athletes are people first, not just storylines or marketing opportunities or ratings drivers. And I get that Caitlin is a fierce competitor. She wants to be out there. She absolutely wants to help her team win, but sometimes you have to protect a player from themselves. I really don't care if she misses 3 games or if she has to sit out through the All-Star break. Her career, her future, and honestly, the future of the league is worth way, way more than a couple of regular season wins right now.
That seems like the prudent approach.
So here's what I hope for her and for the team, that the Fever play it smart. Just be smart about this. Give her adequate time. Let her fully heal. Don't try to rush her back for ratings or for some big headline matchup against a rival or to chase a couple more ticket sales. None of that matters in the grand scheme.
Right.
If she has to sit 3 weeks, do it. If she has to sit 6 weeks, so be it. I would much, much rather see Caitlin Clark at 100% next year, ready to dominate for years to come, than watch her limp through this season and risk a career-altering major injury. And it's particularly important because, as you know, groin injuries are notoriously tricky.
They really are.
They tend to linger, often because of the complex muscle groups involved, the blood supply to the area. They require genuine, often prolonged rest and proper rehab to prevent chronic issues and re-injury. You just cannot afford to gamble with her long-term health, especially not now, not with everything that's at stake.
Absolutely. What's truly at stake here is the longevity of a generational talent. That's not hyperbole in her case. Rushing a player back from a lingering injury, particularly one as complex and persistent as a groin strain often is rarely, if ever, a sound long-term strategy. It almost inevitably leads to re-injury or the development of those compensatory issues elsewhere in the kinetic chain we talked about. For someone who holds so much future value to the league, both on the court and commercially prioritizing immediate wins over a fundamental, comprehensive recovery, is just a really high-risk gamble, and it almost never pays off in the long run.
And maybe the only real silver lining for Indiana right now is that this roster actually does have some depth they can lean on while she's out. Ari McDonald is back and playing pretty well. Aaliyah Boston is playing strong down low. Kelsey Mitchell's doing her thing, scoring.
They have pieces.
Yeah. And both Lexi Hall and Sophie Cunningham have shown they can step up when needed. Will the Fever be as good without Caitlin? Of course not. That would be unrealistic to expect. But they'll survive for a period, they can tread water, and it's simply not worth risking her long-term health for a quick win or two in the regular season. Let's just not pretend it is.
And I think it's important, too, to separate genuine medical need from some of the tactical speculation you sometimes hear. While maybe some might suggest this is a media play or a way to tactically rest her for specific games down the line.
Right, load management or something.
Yeah, exactly. But the consistent pattern of symptoms we've discussed, the visible physical signs, and the known lingering nature of groin injuries, it all strongly indicates a fundamental physical issue that genuinely requires extended recovery time. It really underscores the potential severity of this situation, beyond any, strategic calculations someone might try to guess at.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean? Ultimately, this deep dive into Caitlin Clark's injury isn't just about one player or one team, is it? It really feels like a powerful lens through which we can examine how the WNBA and maybe professional sports leagues generally treat their superstars, how transparently they communicate with their incredibly passionate fan bases, and how they truly balance that allure of short-term excitement and commercial gains with the absolute necessity of long-term athlete health. This feels like a huge moment for the league to show its commitment to its players.
It really does. And it raises, I think, a really important broader question. As professional sports become increasingly deeply intertwined with massive media attention, intricate sponsorship deals, unprecedented commercial interests, how can leagues genuinely ensure that the fundamental well-being of their most valuable assets, the athletes themselves, remains the absolute top priority? Even when millions, maybe billions of dollars and an entire league's growth trajectory are on the line, it's a challenge that's only going to grow in complexity, I suspect.
That's a powerful thought to end on. We truly hope this deep dive gave you some new insights, maybe made you think a bit. We definitely want to hear your thoughts on this. Are you concerned about how this situation with Caitlin Clark is being handled? What would you do if you were making these decisions for the team or maybe even for the league? Let us know down in the comments below. And if you appreciated this kind of in-depth exploration, please do like this video, subscribe to the deep dive for more, and share it with someone who loves getting the full story. We'll be back soon with another deep dive.